Stack. Thank you very much for joining us this morning here on this webinar. We've been consulting, selling and supporting multi-factor authentication solutions for a number of years now. I think it's probably even more relevant today in this whole agile working thing, where businesses are going to effectively have lots and lots of different branch offices. Those branch offices might be people's houses, undetermined locations where people are logging on from. So I think no more than ever has multi-factor authentication been something which people would want to consider. Zoe, could you just click the agenda slide, please? Thank you. So we're going to be on the call for approximately an hour today. We would have had this session actually in the office, had we been in the office, allowed it to be in the office. We call these sessions lunch and learns. Unfortunately today, it's just going to be the learning aspect of it, and I can't offer you any lunch, but when normal service resumes, we'll start doing these in the office again. But I'm sure, like most of you, everyone's seen the benefit of agile working over the last 2 or 3 months. We actually sent a survey out to all of our clients, which you should have received a copy of, just asking what your experiences of agile working were over the last few months. And unresoundingly, every single organization that responded said that they had a more positive view of agile working than they did previously, and that post any sort of lockdown, it's going to be something that they can offer to their customers, to their staff more and more over the coming months and years. So this is going to be the agenda. So we're going to talk about the key drivers for remote access technology. I think we're sitting in one of those key drivers now, the need to work from home. But it's not just working from home, it's working in an agile fashion. It might not necessarily be from home, it could be anywhere. In an agile fashion, how to implement the access controls and strong authentication with Microsoft 365. Again, I think over the last couple of months, everyone's seen the benefit of, well, those who use it, Microsoft Office 365, things like Teams, etc. But you want to make sure that whoever it is who's accessing that application is who they are supposed to be, and this is where the multi-factor authentication piece comes in. Some unique features of the Telus solution. Then we're going to have a live demonstration. So on the call today is myself. I'm the commercial director at TrueStack. We've got Ian Sanderson, who is waving his hands now, and we've also got Tom Eldridge from Thales. So you're going to hear from us all today. Ian next. Could you just click the next slide, please, Zoe? So I just want to very briefly explain who we are. I won't take too much time here. I know the people who are on this call. Incidentally, we've got about 30 people on this call today. That's really positive. And now I would say that's slightly higher than average. Now that might tell us a couple of things. It might tell us that this is actually super relevant, multi-factor authentication, or it might tell us that you're all in need of doing something a little bit different and you want to hear from our dulcet tones for an hour or so. But I think in general, it is a highly relevant topic. So who we are, as you know, SITS Group and PCI Services merged last September. And we now employ 53 people. It's actually more than that now, and during the lockdown period over the last couple of months, we've actually employed 2 more people. So we're growing, even in this situation that we're in now. We offer end-to-end consultancy services. What that really means is we take customers from a journey from, I guess, what we're talking about now, conceptual, what the art of the possible might be, through to the options around procuring whatever it is, to then implementing it, and then arguably one of the most important bits is the ongoing support of that as well. So that's what we mean by end-to-end. We are focused on customer satisfaction. It's quite an easy thing to say that. It's quite a difficult thing to do. But I think the barometer of that success is the number of clients that we have, and also the retention rate that we have. We lose very few clients. The only time we tend to lose a client, and I can genuinely say it's happened on one hand in the last 12 years, is when there's maybe a change in the sort of IT director or whatever. But similarly, we've had customers who've moved on to other businesses and they've taken us with them. So it works both ways. But I guess we never lose a customer because we're not very good at what we do. We are good at what we do. We are UK wide. And this last one here, spanning most market sectors, it's an interesting point. I was just having a chat with a vendor before this call about who our clients are. And if I look at the demographic of the people that are on the call now, we've got lots of public sector clients. Now, public sector within itself is quite a wide remit: education, housing associations, national park authorities, local government. It's really quite eclectic in itself. Health, but we've got all of those bases covered. We've got a lot of private sector companies that we work with, from architects' practices, law firms, manufacturing, and that's good, because at the moment it's allowing us to service those customers that are just almost continuing like it's business as usual. And for those customers where they've furloughed lots of staff, we're still providing them with a level of support and making sure that their systems are not being compromised, and that just because no one's in the office, that don't become a victim of cybersecurity, for example. So that's a little bit about who TrueStack are. Incidentally, TrueStack, if no one ever knew why we called ourselves TrueStack, true is all around the connotations of being straight and honest and accurate. And then the stack is literally all of the things that we sell. Thales being just one of them. So Dell, Cisco, Thales, Trend Micro, Microsoft, they're all the things that make up the stack. And those three colored bars that you see there, they represent the three businesses that formed TrueStack: Pivotal Networks, SITS Group, and PCI Services, and also look like the letter E a little bit, and also look like a stack. Anyway, that's enough of a history lesson on the logo. Just finally, before I start passing over to Ian Sanderson, who's one of our pre-sales technical consultants, was actually the person that was responsible for choosing Thales in the business. Our vision is to build a sustainable and socially responsible organization that's trusted by our staff, customers, and our vendors to provide outstanding customer service. All of those people are important. Our staff are really important. Our customers are clearly very important, but also the relationship that we've got with our vendors is very important. There'd be no point there being a very good technology, but we didn't get on with the people. It has to be all of those elements present to give that outstanding service. The socially responsible part, I'm very briefly going to touch on that. So as a bit of a thank you for joining the webinar today, what's socially just the ruthless pursuit of money, I guess. It's also about having that corporate social responsibility. And this year we decided to sponsor a local charity in the Northeast called Tiny Lives, who are based in hospitals, and they effectively help parents who've they might have just given birth and there's complications and they need some support. So we felt that was a good, worthwhile charity to support. So as a bit of a thank you for the day, we've said that there's a £10 Amazon voucher for anyone who joins the webinar. If your I don't know, your rules around accepting things such as that don't allow you to do so, if you don't want to accept that £10 Amazon voucher, I'll donate £10 to Tiny Lives. So that was just a little note on that. Next slide, please, Zoe. So I'm going to pass over to Ian Sanderson in a moment, but I just very, very briefly wanted to cover our modus operandi for choosing a technology vendor. Those of you who've worked with us for a long time know that we're a technically led business. So me as the commercial director, I have very little say about what makes it into that stack, if you like. Webcams there, that stack. It's a technically driven thing first. So first and foremost, the technology has to stand up. We have to road test it. We have to try and break it, really. And we do exactly what you would do as a customer, really. We look at a lot of different technologies before we make a decision. And Ian's going to go into that in a second, so I won't steal any of his thunder. And only when it's technically met the bar does it then get passed to me commercially to have a look at, well, you know, what does it look like commercially? Is it too expensive? You know, is it going to be equitable for everybody? And only when those two things match that we then roll that out and start pushing it, not pushing it, talking about it, I should say, to our customers. So what I'm trying to say is that by talking to you today about Thales or any technology that we talked to you about, it's already met some pretty stringent tests before it actually makes it onto the stack. So I'm just going to pass you over to Ian Sanderson now, who's going to just briefly explain why we chose Thales. Ian, over to you.
Thanks, Phil, and good morning, everyone. And I'm just joined by a little helper there. Yeah, so as Phil said, I'm Ian Sanderson, a technical pre-sales consultant at TrueStack. And as Phil's already said, I was involved in sort of the decision-making process and the evaluation phase of the Thales product that we're going to show you today. So one thing I wanted to say just before I crack on with what I'm about to say is you may have noticed there's a chat window available in here. If you do have any questions as we're going through, please pop them in the chat window and we'll answer them at the end in the questions section. But yeah, why Thales? So I think for this, it's important for you guys to understand the thought process we went through when evaluating the marketplace for a multi-factor authentication product, and more importantly, why we were looking in the first place. So in the last few years, I've seen a massive swing when it comes to business priorities in IT. You'll find that many IT directors and IT managers, if you look at these surveys on what's a priority within a business, more often than not, securing assets within a business is up there, or indeed number one priority for that. Each day we create more and more data, which is in essence the lifeblood of any modern business. I dare say if for some reason that data was compromised and you couldn't recover that data, if it was from a malware attack, or going to run across the screen, if it was a malware attack or some other attack on the data, I would dare say that you couldn't recover from that situation. So multi-factor authentication, it's an important part to a multi-layered approach to security within a business. So if any of you don't know what multi-factor authentication is, now it's an additional step you take when you log on to a service. So if you log into your email, as an example, you typically type in a username, a password, and then the multi-factor part is a third form of authentication, which would be typically a 6-digit token. You've probably all seen them in one way, shape, or form. But a common attack vector is credential theft. Indeed, the service we run is monitoring credential theft, but that's by the by. So think about what a malicious actor could do with the data in your business if one of your users' credentials had been compromised. I mean, Office 365 is very commonplace now within many organizations. Someone steals that username and password, they log in, you never know, it might be the CEO, steal confidential documents and or blackmail or any kind of thing like that. Using multi-factor authentication means that even if those credentials were stolen, they're pretty much useless at that point, because you need to have that third form of authentication before you can log into a service like Office 365. So malicious actors, yeah, cool, but chances are I've got something like this in place, credential theft. It does matter, but it doesn't matter as much. So with that in mind, we set out to find a solution that met the four criteria that you see on the screen now, which is ease of use, fully featured, it's truly SaaS based, and offers value for money. So with that, we looked at offerings from various vendors. Some include Microsoft and Duo, which all had their good points, but none of them offered everything that we wanted on the 4 points listed above there, apart from Telus. So, for example, Microsoft, if you do have Office 365, you might have looked at some of their offerings for multi-factor authentication. You know, it's not a bad product, but it's very much focused on the Microsoft ecosystem. We wanted something that could tackle a wide variety of solutions that we sell, not just Office 365. So things like VMware Horizon View, VPN solutions, things like that. I mentioned Duo there as well. So again, Duo, great product, but one of our criteria was to have a truly SaaS-based solution. Many of the things that Duo would secure required the installation of an additional server or service on premises, which for us just added extra complication and didn't really play into that ease of use criteria that we were looking for there. So just a little bit about Telus. If you haven't heard of them before, they bought an organization in 2019 called Gemalto, which is what this product set is that we're going to show you today. If you may have heard of Gemalto before, they make things like passports with the RFID chips in, make bank card readers. You know, they've got a long and good heritage with security products, and obviously one of the things they make as well is the multi-factor authentication tokens, as well as the software to back that up. So just on the last point there, the value proposition that Telus brings, obviously it's the ease of use, it's SaaS based, it's fully featured, but as they make the hardware tokens as well, that's something they can bundle in with in the license cost for a multi-factor authentication solution. So if you just think of some use cases where you might use this, you may have used things like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator app on your phone. It can be a difficult sell if your organization doesn't have a workforce with company issued mobile devices. You might be in a situation where you ask those users to install a piece of software in their own phone, which understandably you may get some pushback on. So just the fact that there's another option where you can hand out a hardware token as well just takes away that possibility. And as I said, they're bundled in with a cost, whereas it's typically an additional cost with the other solutions that we evaluated. So that was it. That was my piece on this. That's why we chose Telus. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Tom. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Eldridge. I'm a security consultant. So yeah, so who are Telus? Coming on from what Ian said, but a little bit further back, they originally started off as SafeNet and were bought out by Gemalto in 2015. And it was a very, very good mesh. SafeNet were the very, very top of what they did regarding authentication, key management. Gemalto also had the hands in PKI and things like that, so it was a very, very good mesh. And then in 2018, 2019, they were bought out by Telus, and now they've formed underneath that umbrella, and they consistently sit in the top right corner of the quadrant, or at least did when the quadrant was around. They are a very big fish in this particular type of pool, and they do everything from two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, PKI solutions, key security, and HSMs and things like that. So they do a whole range of different security products in order to protect your environment. Next slide, please. What I'm going to do is run through a live demonstration now, from all the way through from the authentication through to what separates Star from the other vendors to make them. Yeah, what's on my screen? That's great. Okay, so as everyone can see my screen, Star is a single platform, but it's two entities that lean on each other. So here you have the authentication side. This is where you can assign your users, keeping this very, very high level. So this is where you can assign your users. Very, very simple to do. They can be imported via CSV file or created manually or synced from AD. So there's many ways of getting your users within the platform itself. It's not difficult. There's the whole platform is very easy of access. It offers hardware and software tokens, also a grid shore, which is like an agentless token, very similar to the way that you'd unlock, say, an Android phone. You choose a pattern, you type in the numbers that correspond with that pattern, and it allows you in. It doesn't require anything to be downloaded onto a phone or any other platform, so it's great for things like Office 365 or other SAML applications. But they also do, let's say, mobile pass tokens, which it can be installed on anything with an operating system. So again, whatever your situation, whatever you want to protect, it can be integrated. As long as it supports Radius or SAML, it's good to go. We can find a way, even custom things with APIs. So just like I say, a very quick overview. The authentication activity, you'll have it logs deep, so it logs your IP addresses, it logs who logged on to what, from where, at what time, whether they were successful or whether they failed, and the reasons why they failed, which is a great asset for troubleshooting. And you can drill down further and further and further if you go down into their user segments. They do a really good references section. All their documentation and all their agents are all free. So they all come as PDFs or zip files containing the configuration information and the files. So that, I think that's a nice asset for it. So you don't have to log in or create any profiles to actually obtain this information. It's all available on the platform. Pardon me. The features that we are here to see. So my internet's a bit sluggish today. Got like 5 people in the house using internet. So all the users are pulled into the trusted access side. Well, this is the SAML side. SAML used to be a lot more complicated, the integration, but now because of Star, it's been heavily simplified. It's a real ease use case. So all the users are already pulled in. If you click on a user, you'll see all the details about them, what users, what applications have been assigned to them, what tokens have been assigned to them. Again, more logging on access attempts. There we go. Application edition is very, very simple. It's been heavily simplified. So what you will get is a list of templates. Now these templates themselves are constantly being added to all the time. So if, for instance, Office 365, it's one of the largest reasons that people choose Star as their as their MFA provider. But if in the event that your application isn't on the list, there are generic templates for SAML and IDC, so they will work exactly the same. The only difference is that these have heavy documentation behind them, which go into detail on how to obtain metadata from different places, different sites. But again, these are all being added to all the time. Now with Office 365, you can do it in two ways. You can do it in the manual way, using the entity ID, single sign-on service, downloading the certificate, or you can download the metadata directly, because Star supports upload and download of metadata files. So if you're using something like Salesforce, which I've already previously used a lot of, that also supports download and upload of metadata files. So it's quick in, quick out, and then it's connected. So there's no hassle, no hour-long trying to get it to work. It's upload, download, you're in. So that's really, really nice. Now, once the metadata file has been downloaded, you can do exactly the same thing with your Office 365 metadata file. You can import it straight in, drag and drop. Once that's done, it's connected. It'll hand over everything to its ISP. So then you can go ahead and assign it to all users, groups of users, or no users at all. Now, after your applications are all installed, you will have policies that can control access to or access from specific areas of your network. So you start off with a global policy, and that's a base policy. It's very similar to your default deny that you get on a firewall. So it says, in the absence of all other scenarios, the users will be denied. After this, you have scenario-based policies. Now, these can do anything from specifying internal or external network ranges, can deny people with anonymizers, users that haven't logged on for a specific period of time, specific operating systems that are version specific. So you can lock it down to people who are using the latest version of Windows, or you can stop people from using iOS and Android to access things like mobile devices and stuff. You can make sure that people are on the most updated version, or they won't be able to access your system. Things like that. User locations. If your company is specifically in one country and doesn't deal with any other countries, you can say only people can access it from England or France or Germany. So, and nobody outside of those countries will be able to authenticate. And then you have country changes, which for people who fly from different places. So if it acknowledges that there was an authentication done in England, and then 2 hours later it did it in Germany, it would see it as a, hang on a minute, this doesn't make sense, we're going to deny you. Now, all of these policies can be created around password authentication or token-based authentication. And with Star Premium, you can integrate that with certificate-based authentication and Kerberos. So you can integrate it within your internal network so that it works well with, like, say, your Kerberos tokens or your certificate-based authentication if you are doing PKI and things like that. So that you can add those to the policies so that people logged on already with PKI or with Kerberos, then they won't need to use two-factor authentication. Now, within the applications themselves, you will have, where are we? Applications. You will have a user portal. Now, this is what you would provide to all your users. It's a single URL, which the aim of this is to save having lots of different bookmarks for lots of different portals, because now and coming future and even deeper future, everybody's going to have, it's all going to be cloud-based. All applications are all going to be browser-based, so they're all going to be in the cloud. So instead of having 5 or 6 that you've got to log on to every day with different credentials, you have the user portal, and all the applications that you have on Star will appear in those user portal as long as your user's been assigned to that portal. And you will see something that looks like this. Like I said, my internet's a bit sluggish today. So, sorry. Can't even spell my name today, crikey. And G. Now this is a Gridshaw token. Good to show you actually. So you just type in the numbers that correspond with your pattern, and there's enough entropy in there so that even if I told you what my code was, you still wouldn't be able to work out what the pattern is, which makes it secure. And you will see this, which is so a list of the tokens that you have, a list of the applications that are active and underneath your user. Now, if you log into one of these applications using your user ID and your 6-digit passcode, it saves the trust between you and Star. So it will then say, okay, any other applications, we know that this user has logged on using their credentials and their token, which has been validated by Star, we'll let them all in without having to authenticate. Now, this can be changed within the policies, but having that single sign-on allows a lot of ease of access, especially if you've got multiple different SAML-based authentication programs running, so Office 365, Salesforce, things like that. If you've got 5 or 6, then logging onto one, you can log on to the rest of them without having to authenticate, which makes life a lot easier. Now, the idea behind Star was to reduce things like password fatigue, of people having lots of different pools and having to remember lots of different passwords. Because they remember lots of different passwords, they cut corners, they make them simplified and static, very easy to crack, but easy to remember. And the idea of two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication is to have a password which is simple but can only be used once. So that reduces or dissolves the idea of password fatigue. It keeps everything centralized in a nice location. Every user would have their own user portal that they would access, rather than having multiple different bookmarks. They'd click on that, then they'd have access to all their links. Their Office 365, their Salesforce, their whatever, and they'd be able to access everything from there. They click on a link, it takes them straight to that page. They log on another link, it takes them straight to that page. From there, when they authenticate, it redirects them to an IDP page, asks them for their 6-digit code, and they're in. So it makes life considerably simple for web-based applications. I use this all the time for all sorts of different things. It's absolutely great. Saves a lot of hassle. As well as web-based applications, you still have the options for radius-based authentication through auth nodes on the Gemalto portal itself, on the Telus portal itself. So any firewalls or anything like that that doesn't run SAML can be added as an auth node you can authenticate it through there. Offers two-factor authentication. The rule of thumb is if it supports SAML or Radius or even an API, it can be integrated. So generally, the world is your oyster when it comes to wanting to integrate with Telus. It's what makes it such a wide product and keeps it ahead of all the competition. Any questions following that? Nope. Okay. Over to you, Zoe, I believe.
Yeah, I'll take over here. So, Ian, are you going to talk about the key drivers and the ease of implementation, etc.?
Yeah. So the ease of implementation, it's very, very easy to set up. I mean, it's a 5, 10, 15-minute job rather than a half-day, 2-day kind of trying to set it up and get it running. We can spin up a virtual server and have licenses on there, users on there, very, very quickly, ready to roll. The Office 365.
Sorry, I was meaning Ian Sanderson. Do you want to come? I don't want people to take away that I'm not trying to contradict what Tom said, but whilst it might be relatively easy to install, like anything, there's still detail required. We still want to write a statement of works. We still want to, do some work with you to understand which users want a hard token, which users will want a soft token, what are the devices. So, like most of these things, the devil's in the detail. But that said, even for I don't know, a 300 or 400 seat site, Ian, how many days are you looking at to do an install?
It's one of those classic IT answers. It depends, isn't it? But let's just say it's all in the prep work. I mean, Tom said, the actual deployment of the portal is quick because it's already there. It's a cloud-based product, but the integration with whatever applications we're looking at to do that with, that's what takes the additional time. And as you say, identifying users who want to use it, types of tokens to use, if there's particular hours the service is allowed to run, all those kinds of considerations. Yeah, I mean, you could click next, done, but that never ends well. That's part of what we built our reputation on, is putting in the legwork, doing the homework.
Couldn't agree with you more, Ian.
Yeah, and doing it that way.
Yeah. Obviously, we've discussed quite a few use cases. I think one of the things that we quite liked about Thales was its holistic approach, in that it doesn't matter what, whether it's 365 or whether it's another application, it can integrate with it. We did look at Microsoft AD, Azure AD, which clearly it might integrate a little bit tighter with 365, in some, not tighter, but I'm not even going to say more strictly, because it's not. But then it'll only protect Microsoft products, and as you know, your estate doesn't just consist of Microsoft products. There's lots of other things. So one of the things that TrueStack and Ian found appealing about Thales was its ubiquitous approach, really, that it would protect a multitude of different things. So I guess how we can help is how we can help on pretty much anything else, really. It's, if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about this and how it would work in your environment, then talk to us. We'll look at what you need to do. And it's not just a case of putting it in and letting you feeding it and watering it and looking after it. We can also help with that sort of ongoing management of it as well. It isn't particularly onerous to manage, but not like everything else, if something goes wrong, there is an escalation point to TrueStack, and we can liaise with Thales, or it might be that we need to, some cases liaise with another one of the vendors, because Telus fits in as part of an ecosystem in that stack that I mentioned before, and determining where an issue might lie isn't always a straightforward thing. I guess one of the things which is a benefit of working with us is that we will understand your infrastructure end to end. It's not just a one slice of a product. It fits in multiple places. Ian, I noticed you put some pre-baked questions onto the chat. Do you want to go through those first before we actually there's some other questions.
No, there's actual real life questions. How about that?
Oh wow, yeah.
People were paying attention. Well done. Do you want to take that first one, Tom?
Yeah, I'll take that first one. So implementation with Office 365. Office 365 is a very big thing, as everybody's seen in the media nowadays. Protect your Office 365, cloud-based applications. What this does is having it integrated with Star allows you to control who has access to what applications at what time from in what degree. So it will provide multi-factor authentication for your Office 365 logon. So when you log on to Office 365, it'll ask you for your email address and your passcode. It will then redirect you to an IDP page where you'll have to put in your 6-digit code from your token. Now this provides that extra layer of authentication on top of Office 365 to prevent people from being able to access it, without permission.
Okay. So the next question on there was, how quickly can this be deployed? Now, I think we'll cover that a little just before there. It's depends question.
Anything else related to that?
But yeah, like I said before, we're looking at each project
absolutely
case by case basis. So it depends. But it's not like it's not a 15-minute job.
Question 3. It is purely cloud-based. Star is purely cloud-based. It is purely cloud-based. There is an on-premise version, but it doesn't have the Star entity with it. It's just authentication, but no, Star itself is purely cloud-based.
Yeah, just one thing I'd like to add to that bit, if that's all right, is so I mentioned on the why we chose Thales in the first place was we didn't want to have any on-premises infrastructure to feed and water and look after. Now there is one piece of software to install, which is the same with every single identity provider, including Microsoft, is if you want to synchronize user accounts from your local Active Directory. There's a piece of software there to synchronize that to the cloud, but even then, you don't need to use that. It just makes life a lot simpler for you.
Q4, was that Q4 you just took out, Ian?
It was just adding on to Q3.
Oh, okay. Yeah, question 4. Mix of on-prem and cloud applications. Yes, absolutely. It supports Radius and SAML. So if your on-prem equipment does Radius or SAML, then yeah, it can be integrated. Even if it has an API, there's a way of integrating with it. There's in the nearly 10 years that I've been working with the product, I think I've only ever found one product that we actually had issues with integrating with, and it ended up with an API being done by Telus. So yeah, it will integrate with anything.
Yeah, and just to build on that as well, Tom, just give some examples. So typical on-prem infrastructure that we see integration with might be a VPN solution. So you've probably got a lot more uptake on that with the users working from home at the moment. If that is your remote access solution, you can secure that VPN with two-factor authentication. You can secure logons to Windows desktops and server sessions as well with two-factor authentication. So if you're accessing an RDS server or something like that, again, it's another good use case for two-factor authentication. And as Tom showed you, you saw that massive list of cloud-based apps that
which is
integrate with.
constantly increasing.
Yeah, one other one I think just deserves a special mention because it's a bit of a unique case is you can use this to secure if you're running Exchange on premises still. So if you run Exchange 2016 or 2013, 2019, one of those things, it can integrate with that for the Outlook web app access as well.
Yep.
So hit that web page, you need two-factor authentication to access the email. So question 5 is, which I don't know the answer to.
Are there any limitations when integrating with Microsoft NPS accessed via Radius? I wouldn't say there's any limitations because the NPS agent itself can be installed on there, and then that will send all Radius requests up to the cloud. So no, I mean, the NPS technically acts as a proxy to proxy all the communications from multiple different areas to your cloud service. So if you've got lots of different on-prems or Windows logon or something like that, then you can aim them all at your NPS agent, and then it will send everything to the cloud. So there aren't really any limitations as such to that, but it's mainly for things that don't support SAML. I saw you disappear then for a second, Phil, and you've appeared on the other side of me.
Did.
Yeah, so sorry, Tom, did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I just note looking at question 6, automated emails and reporting. Yes, there's gone now. Hold on. Questions are coming in thick and fast.
It's a good thing.
Are there any automated emails for reporting tokens being issued or other suspect activity? Tokens issues being connected. There's reporting that you can run on it. In regards to automated emails, you'll get automated emails for token enrollment. So if you provision a token to somebody, you'll get automated emails for that. Not necessarily for suspected activity, but it will be logged within the system. So
you know the example you gave before, Tom, about how if someone logged in Newcastle at 11:49, then they logged in Germany an hour later. Is there any? Yeah. Would that alert be something which would be emailed? How is that reported?
That would deny it, and then it would log it on the system itself. So well, it would deny it or allow it based on your base global policy. So on the policy that you've applied to it, if you mark that, if you set that up as changes and then deny, then if somebody was to travel, it would deny them, and then it would just log it within the system. So it wouldn't send out an automated email to say that, but not to say that that won't be a configurable feature in the roadmap down the line.
But as a system administrator, would you get alerted to the fact that someone had done that?
you could configure that. Yes, that is configurable.
I mean, what we're getting into here a little bit on that question is a whole different subject, and it's the thing around SIEM, as in SIEM, or System Information Event Management. So that's that whole correlation around suspicious activity. So, for example, you know, if I hear a bang at the front of my house, that alone isn't. It's kind of suspicious. But then if I hear the clatter of feet, well, that again is another indicator of that I've been compromised in my house. Then if I hear someone rifling through the drawers, then again it's another indicator of compromise. Now all those things are independent, and that's why about a year ago, or over a year ago, we launched our SOC, Security Operations Center, which can ingest logs from lots of different sources. So, you know, firewalls from Telus, and that question isn't specifically asking for that, but that's more or less where we're going with this whole correlation, because clearly, you know, your firewall and Thales and your antivirus solution and your Microsoft Active Directory are all independent. And what a SIEM solution does is it brings it all together, ingests all the logs, then it makes sense of them, and then it creates an event based upon multiple pieces of suspicious activity or indicators of compromise. Ian, if you get into that there?
No, I was just going to say what you said. So reading off the same hymn page, so that's good.
Yeah.
Nothing else to add to that. Do you have anything to add to that? Question 6, Tom.
Question 6.
I'll take question 7.
No, I think that's been covered. That's been covered well. You want to take 7?
Yeah, I'll take 7. So question 7 is, if a member of staff leaves the business, can you stop them accessing all the applications that you have secured with multi-factor authentication? So quick answer is yes. All you do there is revoke that user's access tokens. So even if, say it was Office 365, they still have a license assigned, they're still in, that is your Active Directory portal, the account's still live, that they wouldn't be able to log in because they no longer have access to that third authentication method that we spoke about at the beginning of the call. Then I think that's it for the questions.
I mean, we often talk about security being in layers, don't we? I mean, I think this is quite a fundamental layer personally. I would feel very uncomfortable as a business owner allowing our staff to work from any location, accessing my corporate data without some form of multi-factor authentication. And I don't know if we've mentioned this on the call. I don't think we have, but pretty much everything we resell, we actually use internally. So we actually are a Thales user. It actually costs us money as well. So don't think, well, of course he does. He gets it for free. We have to pay for it as well, just like Microsoft we have to pay for too. But we've implemented Thales in our business, and it works very well. And it gives me a level of reassurance that should something go wrong, well, should an employee be logging in remotely, there's less likely to be a compromise because I put another layer in there. I don't know how it links with Cyber Essentials Plus and that sort of thing, but it surely could only be a good thing to have. So I think that's it really. We've kept it to pretty much an hour. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us. I wish I could see you all. It's a little bit unusual just looking at yourself back in a webcam and looking at Tom and Ian. But I know there's quite a few people on the call. Apologies for having to look at our 3 ugly mugs, but it is what it is. So thank you very much. And yeah, if you want to reach out and learn a little bit more about this, then you know where we are. Thanks, guys.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks, bye.